Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. You know, every day I don't know what to talk about. There's so much that is happening every day. I've got whiplash. But this particular story is, I think, a sign of the times. And so I want to talk about this in this hour and then delve into the story from the policy perspective with Alex Lawson from Social Security Works in the next hour. But right now, let's look at this from a humane level. Just as people, I want you to look at the Joni Ernst story. She is, of course, the senator from the great state, one of two senators from the great state of Iowa. And when confronted by her constituents, as many of these elected officials are at these town hall meetings, they're being confronted, particularly those who have either voted with the Republicans or Democrats who do not appear to be fighters. They're being confronted by the people who vote for them or who did not, but the people whom they represent nonetheless. And they're saying, you need to do something, or I didn't sign up for this. And so this voter, or certainly a constituent who was at this town hall meeting, said, people are going to die. We've been assured that these cuts are not going to happen. No cuts to Social Security, SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare. And you've got to understand, when you cut Medicaid, then Medicare collapses. It doesn't collapse, it's being collapsed. Mm-hmm. And she said, oh, look, just look, well,
deep breath.
He said, because she hesitated. You saw her hedging. Mm-hmm. And finally she said, well, you know what? Look, we're all going to die. And she said it facetiously. Mm-hmm. Understandably, people were very upset, very angry, and really beyond the meeting. It's become a national controversy. And I want to know what your thoughts are. Hey, Bernadette, like and share, everybody, like and share. I need you to put your thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Thumbs up. Let's talk about this. I need you to help me out with the algorithm. Thumbs up, like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share. Meet me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social. I'm on X at Santita J, at Santita J. I'm also on Facebook, Santita Jackson and Friends. That's the only place where I can get friends, everybody. They limit you on the so-called landing page. So don't go to Santita Jackson. Don't go to Santita Jackson. Go to Santita Jackson and Friends. And then, of course, meet Bernadette and everybody over on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And please like and subscribe. See, but the story gets worse. Mm-hmm. If you can believe that. She apologized. And you saw her walking. And as she was apologizing, for this, when you looked in the background, you saw headstones. She was walking through a graveyard. You cannot make this up. Now, when you cut Medicaid, urban hospitals are going to close. The first hospitals that are going to close will be those in urban in rural areas, which impacts everybody of all backgrounds, everybody. Believe me, this will be an equal opportunity devastation of Americans. The most vulnerable, Blacks, will get hit first, but poor white people are absolutely vulnerable. Poor Latinos, poor indigenous people, they're vulnerable. A lot of people are going to get hurt. A lot of people are going to get hit. So we need to talk about this, everybody. What does this mean? And what does it say about us that a sitting U.S. senator who is looking at re-election, who's vulnerable? Should she be vulnerable? Absolutely, she should be. But I want to hear what your thoughts are. about what she said and how she apologized. Let's just look at this, everybody, on a human level. Just as humans. Because I'm going to tell you something. Once you have been elected, to me, I think you need to leave your parties behind, quite frankly. I don't want a Republican or Democratic president. I want a president of the United States. I don't want a Democratic or Republican senator or U.S. representative. I want a representative because they're supposed to represent me, not a party. I don't need that. Even if I did not vote for you, you really are being paid by me to represent me and to work for me. That's all there is to it. So I think we need to change our thinking about the way we approach politics anyway. Because George Washington had it right, the two-party system would lead to tyranny because somebody's always on the losing end. And all Americans should win all the time. You're not always going to get what you want. Believe me, I'm from a family of 5 children. My parents said we don't love our children equally, we love them adequately. In other words, they gave us what we needed when we needed them. If somebody needed more attention, you got more attention. If this child looked like they didn't need to be worried about, well, okay, they were all right. But if someone, my parents do that now. Whoever has the most need gets the most eyeballs. So I kind of come from that space. But I do know that there's a baseline requirement that everybody has. You know, we were all in a heated house. We all went to school, tuitions were paid, people got their meals, yada, 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 yada. That's important. But as for your special needs, well, okay, that was on a case-by-case a la carte basis, right? So I really think that we need to have another kind of approach to politics. Because even if you did not vote for Senator Ernst, she still represents Iowans. But she's also um, someone who would say this on the microphone so callously. She felt that she had the space. I think we need to talk about that. What it says to us, was it what it says about us, what it says about what we expect of the people who represent us, what our expectations are. You know, we're going to be having conversations just like this at the Rainbow Push International Conference. We do hope that you will come. Please come to this conference. We need you there. June 12th, 13th, and 14th. It will be at our headquarters on the south side of Chicago at 50th and Drexel. You don't want to miss it. We're not just doing these virtual conversations and these virtual get-togethers. We need to see each other, touch and agree, be together. And I'm going to tell you, what do they say? If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. We really need to be together because these cuts are coming. Unless you decide to push back against those who are doing the cutting. Senator Jeff Hawley, who is a conservative Republican, has said, I can't vote for this. This is going to hurt my constituents because you know what they're calling him. And they're telling him, you had better not do this. Otherwise, you, my friend, will be out of a job. Elon Musk is out of Washington, D.C., at least physically. I'm sure he did some other things that rubbed people the wrong way. Certainly, those are the reports. But he became a political liability to the president because of how Americans felt about him and how we feel about him. His business has been taking a hit. You're the ones with the power. We're the ones with the power, everybody. So I've got these 2 brilliant women with me today. You know, we have our coffee clutch on Sundays. That comes up on Mondays. Oh my goodness. Award-winning broadcaster, television personality, and writer, journalist, Lavonia Perryman. Also, she's a professor as well, and an activist. And boy, she wears a lot of hats. I've known her a long time. She's been a veteran of many campaigns. I mean, of course, I've met you before the Jackson campaigns, but of course you were, you know, one of the stalwart, well, super staff members. I think that's fair. You didn't get a paycheck, but you did the work of a staffer. Well, you know, that's what happens with Reverend. You get an assignment and you just have to keep on going with it. And of course, Dr. Alia Amar, fellow Dolphin from Whitney Young Magnet High School, but of course she's a brilliant scientist, and social justice advocate. So I want, we've been having some technical issues, but we're going to keep on going with this. So I'm going to have to mute myself. But watch me, ladies, because when I start pointing, I want everybody to go and I'll interrupt. And then when I do, I'm going to mute people just so we can get this right. Hey, Paula, easy peasy, and Bernadette, and Miss Carol, my sister from another mister. Okay, you all are all my sisters from other misters. Like and share, like and share. Think about what Senator Ernst said, Dr. Amar, and think about the apology from a graveyard. Now, these are people who need their Medicare and their Medicaid. I'm all for finding the waste, fraud, and the abuse, but the Pentagon has failed its audit 7 consecutive times. When President Trump went over to the Middle East, the big winners were the military contractors, Boeing and General Electric. Not me, not you. Dr. Amar, just on a human level, if you were sitting in that audience and look, she's one of 100 senators. She represents everybody. You
Well, I
can't just
think you just
confine her to
nailed it.
Iowa. What do you think of that?
I think you just nailed it. You said on a human level. So the Supreme Court gave us the idea that corporations are people too. And this introduced a vast amount of inequity, so much so that our representatives no longer feel that they need to represent us. And what they currently have embraced is a lot of cruelty and a lot of disdain for significant portions of their constituencies. When she said, "Well, we're all going to die," oh, I'm sorry. The point of Medicaid isn't to die. The point of Medicaid is to allow you to live with dignity and as little pain and with as much treatment for your health conditions as is warranted. That is the point. Otherwise, what does she think? She could just hand us ropes instead? She has missed the point about representing her constituency, but she's representing who she thinks she should represent and who she thinks she should emulate. So the behavior, the callousness of it, um, and the slap in the face to these people who clearly must be lesser beings to her, and not as human as those corporations who are also people too. Um, she comes from a perspective where, at the present time, she's banking on one of two things: either the vote is gerrymandered or rigged in some way that you could say just about anything and you're going to get your seat back. Or we have become such a society of cruelty, emulating cruelty, and reproducing cruelty that she's waiting on cheers from the other bullies. Oh, look what she did. Didn't she, you know, tell it to the libs? You made a great point a minute ago. We don't need politicians who are so busy talking about whether they just kicked it to the libs or screwed over the Republicans. We need representatives who remember that the founding fathers set up our system of governments in order for the people, the individuals, the little guys, to have a format to voice their opinions and address their concerns. Because without that, the only forum that's left is violence and revolution. We have managed to only have one violent revolution in this country, one seriously violent one. We've only had one civil war. And in 250 years of a republic that is composed of such different people, that's not a bad record at all. And the one time that it was done, it was necessary. But now we're at a point where we get up day after day with people who are supposed to represent us. They don't care about our ideas. They're jailing people for attempting to exercise freedom of speech. They're removing asylum and asylum rights from individuals that they had given it to after we told the world that we were some sort of beacon of hope and freedom and sanctuary. And if you think that anything trickles down, don't expect it to be the money that they say will trickle down from those budget cuts for the wealthy. Those budget cuts for the wealthy have been happening nearly my entire life. They haven't trickled down anywhere. What has trickled down, though, is pure, unadulterated, in your face cruelty from the people that you pay to represent you.
You know, Lavonia Perryman, you have got to help me with this because I want you to look at it on a human level, but also messaging, because that's what you do. I mean, one has to wonder. I mean, what is she? What do you imagine she's thinking? Because she has not backed off of this, Dr. Amar. She gave her apology in a graveyard,
Yeah.
not a cemetery, a graveyard. When you saw her walking and she was holding the camera, you saw, wait a minute, you went up on the picture. You said, no, 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 no. She can't be in a cemetery. Are you serious right now? Oh my word. The cruelty, the mean spiritedness was just stunning. Lavonia Perryman.
First and foremost, Dr. Amon has given me an idea that I would like to bring to the messaging and bring to the citizens, not just in Washington, D.C., but across the country, regardless of race, creed, or color. There should be a revolution in terms of individuals speaking their truth. The message should be, we are not taking this any longer. We are going to have a revolution. And that revolution could be by a text, a phone call, a march, a walk, a rally, yelling and screaming at the top of your mountaintop, wherever you may be, at your school board meeting, at your hospital, at your nursing home. It could be in the form of a letter, a postcard. A revolution starts in the neighborhood, in the hood, as they would say, in the community, in the church. A revolution starts with one person raising the issue. You don't have to raise your voice, but raise your issue with a message that no, we're not taking that anymore. Number two, remember, always remember, this senator who is representing her constituents didn't get up that morning to decide she was going to feel that way. Let's be very, very clear. This was not an overnight infant, idea. This is something that's been in the soul of a person. For anyone to say that, the soul of the person has to be in the comments. Remember, people at that level just do not get up in the morning and in the halls of the Senate and say things they do not believe. Cooperative word, believe, and willing to back it up, even with a background of a cemetery. So let's understand who she is. Once you understand that you have some power as a revolutionary, as one person. Number two, that you're dealing with a person who has harbored these thoughts, these feelings, and is not going to back up. That brings up number three, that you should not back up either. Number four, you talk about, let's make it personal, and let's say the words. I did a profile, if you allow me. 42% of the people on Medicaid today, 2021, 42% of the people are white. Profile of the person in Medicaid: children, pregnant women, low income elderly, the disabled, those in low income jobs, and, which I did not know, businesses who hire, hello, low income, undereducated individuals are supported by Medicaid. Also, who is the largest number of people that receive Medicaid? American, Native American, Alaskan women between 2001 and 2003. Next group of people, Hispanics, Black Hispanics, just so you'll know, and African American. The majority of people who are on Medicaid today are females and children. And so you have to understand, I hey, I just got a master's. This young lady who is the senator got a law degree. You know she knows that. So I want you to understand who you're dealing with. Once you know who you're dealing with, your message can be crafted and say that no, we are not going to back up, back off. We know that it impacts over, let me get some more numbers. On Medicare, there is 67 million plus people who are on Medicare. On Medicaid today, 71% of the people in the country are on Medicaid. This is not a hello everyone in the back room. This is not an African American story alone. This is an American story that will impact your children, your grandmother, your aunt, your uncle, those you don't know. And guess what? If you're in the group that you're going to die anyway, you need to have health care, Medicare at some level. You have no idea in terms of the crystal ball, in terms of health. This is about health care. This is about the hospitals that serve you. This is about the nursing centers that serve you. These are about the rehabilitation communities in your community. This is about your grandmother, your grandfather, your aunts, and your uncle, and those babies who may not have a chance if they did not have Medicaid or Medicare. That's the human side of this.
You know, I want to hear from you all. I mean, because let me see. Is it Bernadette? You said healthcare entities are beginning to close here. Where are you, Bernadette? Let me know where you are. Um, Remember, and I want you to talk about what you have seen in the UAE one more time, Dr. Amar, because when you laid out what how they crafted their society when they came into wealth, I think we need to hear that again. Because these are people who, number one, who are part of a civilization, not an empire. Civilizations. You know, civilizations perpetuate themselves. They have customs, they have mores and folkways that withstand the test of time. I want to know where you are, Bernadette, because I think it's important for us to. Well, I'm because she's in Maine. Ah, okay. Wow, where are you in Maine? See, this is to the point. You're making the point. This is going to hit everybody everywhere. When Robert Kennedy was running for president in 1968, he did something that was incredible. He went to Appalachia. And yes, I've been told by people who are in Appalachia that it's Appalachia, not Appalachia. When he went to Appalachia, he posed with white children who were half naked and poor and covered in filth. But you know, that's children too. Those children love to play in mud and things like that. But you extrapolated from the photographs that they might not have had access to running water. We went to a place called Sugar Ditch in Tunica, Mississippi, which has now become a casino. We were there in 1985. And Black people lived on the ditch. They drank, they cooked out of that ditch. They drank from the ditch, they cooked out of that ditch. They bathed in that ditch. They also had to relieve themselves in the ditch. We saw children who were born without rectums, for example. Well, when you have that kind of when you have to live in that state of unhealthfulness, the impact is incredible. So there's that. This is going to impact everybody. Bernadette's telling you she's seeing places close in Maine. We have the worst health outcomes for pregnant women, white, black, brown, yellow, and red, of any place in the industrialized world. A woman getting pregnant in America, if she's white, black, or anything in between, she's looking at a death sentence. Tragically, indigenous, it's all tragic, but indigenous women have the worst health outcomes of anybody in America. Their health outcomes are worse than black women's. because of their reduced circumstances. It's horrible. So I just want you to first take us back to what we're missing about the UAE and what we're missing about what's possible, Dr. Amar, in a society. So please help me explain what the decisions
So
that were made.
a society that cares about its future doesn't do what America is doing right now. We don't do it to healthcare. We don't do it to education. We don't do it to nutrition. We simply don't do it. We don't operate in this way. So I appreciate the question about what things were like. I lived in the UAE for 6 years, and I really, really enjoyed my time. I may not always agree with all of the politics, but I don't think that happens anywhere. What I most admired, though, especially as I learned about the history, because you're right, it's a civilization. And the archaeological record goes back at least 7,000 years. 7,000 years ago, the people who lived in the Emirates, uh, they were traders up and down the Gulf. They were trading various things. They were coming into contact with various societies. You see archaeological evidence of how they began to kind of integrate and maneuver and utilize what they learned, not to set up difference, but to set up trade primarily. And so that meant that when they encountered people with different religions, different colors, different languages, they became skilled at navigating and incorporating that. Another place where you can see a similar sort of civilization and history is in Jerusalem. People had to do that, they came from all over. But in the UAE, what you found was that after thousands of years, Europeans discovered them, and the British took a particular interest. The British wanted to colonize the Emirates. And the Emiratis were like, no, thanks, we'll pass. You know, like, wherever you came from, we've been here 7,000 years. You're new to the neighborhood. Maybe you don't know everybody, but we're good. Okay. Um, and so it took, if I'm not mistaken, something like 150 years for the British to be able to conquer the Emiratis. It took a very long time. The very first reports that went back were admirals returning to England to inform the monarchy that when they came out to conquer these people, that even the women and children were heavily armed and fought them to the tooth, to the teeth. So I'm bringing up this historical component because this is not something where these are wild, savage people, unlearned, all of the stuff that colonizing countries always say about the countries that they hope to steal from. And certainly fitting into the stereotypes that we're encouraged to hold and develop about Africans and Arabs, outside of America and frankly within America. So you get to this point where the British succeed, they take over. And somewhere in there, the trade collapses, and the British allow the Emiratis to begin to starve. There's a great famine. The mortality rates were very high for women having babies. Emiratis, like all other people, value their children, love their children, and they think about their future. And so, after many, many years of struggle, they freed themselves from being a colonized land. But they were a colonized land that had been stripped of so much that they needed to survive. And so Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, the founder of the UAE, gathered the leaders of the other local tribes and said, hey, let's figure this out together. We need to find some oil and try to do what some of the neighboring countries are doing because that'll bring wealth back to the area. And it took over 40 years, if I'm not mistaken, for them to find oil. And they found so little. They were told that there was only 20 years worth of oil. And so now the question is, how do you rebuild your civilization if you got a maximum of 20 years of money and it's not as much as everyone around you? And that's where values come in, because societies and civilizations that are focused on their future and that care about their people do exactly the opposite of what we're doing right now, and they put down a foundation to help change where they are. And the Emirates 50, 60 years ago, pure desert, 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 everywhere. You hit the water, you hit in the water because you just walked out of the desert. The water's full of salt. So desert, desert everywhere. Um, and there was one road between, I think, Dubai and Abu Dhabi. There was like Airport Road, and then eventually there was Sheikh Zayed Road, which is the main highway. But there was just like one road and nothing to the side of this. Now, I want to challenge people listening right now to go ahead and Google Dubai, Google Abu Dhabi, and just look at the pictures, because that's what happened in a society that invested in itself over 50 years. And then I want you to think about our neighborhoods. I want you to think about the poor neighborhoods, the African American neighborhoods, the Latino neighborhoods. I want you to think about every ghetto we've got and ask yourself if we could have done the same thing in 50 years if our country valued us. And the Emirates started in a beautiful space. They started in the same place that Medicaid and WIC are designed to support. Programs that America implemented at a time when we were future thinking and when we cared about our own culture and our own people and our civilization, our budding civilization. And so the first uses of the money were to build hospitals, beginning with maternal hospitals, Corniche Hospital in Abu Dhabi. It was an interesting thing to be a doctor there, because if I said, "Where were you born?" everybody would say, "Corniche Hospital, Corniche Hospital." And then if they got a little older, "Oh, I was born in a house here." You know? um, but they finally had a hospital. And because they had a hospital, the mothers weren't dying having babies. And those mothers could then contribute their knowledge, their wisdom, their love, and their care to the upbringing of their children. And their young daughters weren't tasked with becoming head of household at very young ages. And they could do what? They could go to school. Because before all of this, when the country was starving, Emiratis often went to neighboring wealthy Gulf countries like Kuwait, where they were placed into service. Everybody who had to still get on the bus and get to work during the pandemic, you understand what I mean. They were placed into service. And once or twice a year, somebody would come through, and the education was just someone would come through and they teach just enough numbers, just enough reading so that you could be a helpful worker. Everybody with a Southern grandparent or a Southern great grandparent, you've heard a story like this. All they got was 1 to 2 or 3 years of education, just enough to know their numbers, just enough to read a little bit, but not enough to read the big words that help you move somewhere in society. And so they invested in education. And even when you step off the airplane, these are the first messages that you get as you enter their country. They are messages from the founder of the UAE to all people for all time as you step out into the airport, that these are the things they value: healthcare, education, community. Now, we shouldn't feel that that's foreign. We got a similar message from our founders in the Declaration of Independence. You know, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. And that among these are life, not that graveyard stuff, not that cemetery stuff, not that we're all gonna die stuff. When we cared about ourselves and when we cared about the future of our society, what our founder said was that it was an inalienable right to life and to liberty and to the pursuit of happiness. And I would dare anyone to tell me how you are supposed to have life, liberty, and happiness, but you are not supposed to have health or health care for yourself and for your children.
And see, that becomes the issue. That becomes the issue because Gore Vidal, brilliant, brilliant thinker, writer, he said, and critic, social critic, but not in a destructive way, in a constructive way. He was asked about America. And he said his profound disappointment was that we could have achieved civilization, but we were ambitious for empire. See, you've got Yuval Harari pulled up something that he wrote in 2017. Who is he? He is considered to be the most brilliant guy, really the thought leader of the World Economic Forum. He talks about useless eaters, superfluous people. There is a thinking out here. You have people who are talking about population control. We've got too many people in the world. My pastor, Reverend Evans, he didn't go to Oxford and all these other universities, this, that, and the third, but neither did Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And see, I'm going to follow him before I follow someone from these other universities because they never freed me. Okay, he first went to Morehouse. He studied under Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. My father went to North Carolina A&T. He was under Dr. Samuel Proctor. See, they figured out something. That's where I am, okay? I think we need to figure out who we are here. Because while everybody is, I don't want to miss this moment with Senator Joni Ernst, Lavonia Perryman, because it goes beyond messaging. It really comes down to values, the value system, because she thought this was funny. See, and if she said it openly, only heaven knows what she has said behind closed doors. See, what do they say? Like when people get liquored up, there's truth juice. Yeah, I said it. The lips will reveal what the heart attempts to conceal. She said the quiet part out loud, Lavonia, Dr. Amar. Really. And I think we have to talk about that. I mean, we've got about 15 minutes or so left here because this is not a Republican Democratic issue. And some people have made it partisan. No, no, no. This is about principles to me. See, and if you're not pushing back on principle, to me, you're really missing the moment here. And I don't want us, Livonia, to miss this moment because this woman said something and it was so cruel. And she looked at people and said, well, you're going to die. And I heard the chuckle because then she went to a graveyard. I said, okay, look, I'm going to apologize to you. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but while she's walking, while I'm watching the headstones, she's passing the headstones in the graveyard, Livonia. Come on now, hold on, help me.
Help me. Well, once again, I want to repeat these numbers to everyone, regardless of race, creed, and or color, way beyond the message. She was sending a message, and she sent it. Remember, she sent it to over 67.3 million people who are on Medicare. Let's be very clear. That's race, creed, and color, gender, young, old. On Medicaid, remember, over 70% of the people in the country, in the United States, on Medicaid. What does that mean? That means that more than half of the people that are alive are on or have some service or are in need of some service. This is a class conversation. This is a race conversation. This is a money conversation. And she is speaking to and on behalf of a certain group of people who she has dismissed over 70% of the people in the country because they're not part of her class. Class in terms of income, status in the country, or went to the right school, or speak the right language, or live in the right neighborhood, who look the same as she does. Remember, this is about class, and you're right, Jackson, you're right. She is not talking on behalf of the people, over 70% of the country. She did not get up in the morning and decide to write this script out. She has been harboring these feelings. They come out in different ways. This is only one presentation. Remember now that she has probably a string of presentations, a stream of consciousness that has nothing to do with the people that we are speaking to, those who are in need. And then some people are not in need. They're family members. If you want to bring it to a personal level, they're family members who may be in need. This is not about the people who are able. This is really about our neighbors, our relatives. If we're going to speak to the folk who have the hearts, who have the needs, these are children. This is the 1 in 3 African American females who are impacted by mortality rate when they give birth. Do you understand that 1 out of 3 Black women die giving birth? This is who we're talking about. We're talking about the personal conversation about what she feels. Those are not the people that obviously she cares about. And this is a conversation. And then we are in a environment today. Let's not get confused. We're in an environment today where people have the gall, the feeling that they're able to express what they would express at the kitchen table or behind the closed door or behind a cocktail. They are able because they have been given the feeling from the White House. Let's connect the dots. Let's connect the dots. And those dots are, remember, I'm not blaming it all on Trump now. This has been going on for some time. This is nothing that is just dropping at his doorstep. We need to drop it at the doorsteps of our senators, our House of Representatives, our Supreme Court justice. Who would ever thought today that our Supreme Court justice would not represent children, women, men of all race, creed, and color? Who would think the Supreme Court justice would be politicized at the level it is? Let's say it, because it has been. But what it also says, that we can be revolutionary in our own way. That we can say to the White House, the Senate, the House of Representatives, we can say to the Supreme Court, we are watching you, but we're not going to just sit back and allow this to happen. We cannot allow this to happen. This is not something that's going to change unless we make the change. It is not. When you said that Elon Musk was basically excused himself out of the White House, it wasn't by accident. The undergirt of all of that was about money. Had nothing to do with Black or white people. Had something to do with his dollars and cents. How is it who would have ever thought that they would be airborne Africans to the United States and provide them housing, vouchers for education, vouchers for hotels, not the number 3 hotels, number 4, 5, and 6-star hotels. Who would have ever thought that? That's not by design. That's by design. That's by design to say that we do not, I'm going to say it because they've already said it, we don't have enough educated, pure white in America. Because people that look like me and you and other people who are watching, they are bountiful. They are really, really progressing. When we look at the graduation, and you look at your Facebook page and see the brothers and sisters who are graduating, who are advancing their education, that wasn't something that people didn't just do. They worked very hard. Parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, sisters and brothers sacrificed for those pictures that we see on Facebook and people graduating. That wasn't an easy price. Many times our scholarships don't look like the other scholarships. When you want to talk about this on a personal level, this is Alaskan women. The women as your father has really, when he went into the mountains and he went into Arkansas and we went into the ditches and we went into the places where we slept because they had no hotels. We were living in cabins and saying, we can vote for you. Join us. Those are the people that Reverend Jesse Jackson and Dr. Dorothy Height and other people that we know fought very hard. This is a class situation that we're dealing with. It is an economic situation that we're dealing with. This is an education. Remember, she was not speaking on behalf of the people in the country. She was speaking on behalf of the people that she knows and speaking on behalf of the people that she represents. That's a problem. But guess what? We're not going to let it go like that. There is, as Dr. Amar says, there can be and should be a revolution based on messaging and based on action. That doesn't mean that you got to hit the streets this afternoon, but you can hit your telephones, you can hit your texts, your emails, and your exit. You have to people let them know how you feel and that you're not going to be dismissed, pushed aside. Whatever happened overseas, there, like you said, it was only one dust road and right and a left. If you see that a country today, it looks like something out of the science fiction. It is
You're
absolutely
bringing in
beautiful.
flying tech.
Yes, unbelievable.
We
Let
had
me
we
say
had
this.
a scene we had a scene one day where people didn't really believe it. All of a sudden, everybody was getting these messages on their phone, and it was that a flying taxi was landing at the Museum of the Future, which already doesn't look like a building. It looks like a sculpture. And the top of the building is designed to open up so that you can land there, right? And I thought about it from the perspective of somebody that watched it being built for several years, but also the perspective of someone that grew up with the Sears Tower as like the tallest building in the world being near us and living in a country where we always had the biggest, the brightest, the best. And I think about things like when Santita asked me this question, I kind of tell the history and the value system. I have to think about my own health because when I went to the UAE by 2019, my doctor was like, "Hey, something's a little off for you, and we need to trace that." And so she began to trace it, and I mean, she traced and traced and traced. And by 2020, we knew that I needed surgery and I had to have a major surgery. And I was a little scared because, as much as I try to resist stereotype bias, I'm as vulnerable to it as everywhere. And I was like, well, maybe I need to get back to American medicine. The truth is, I can't afford American medicine. I'm a doctor. I pay a ridiculous amount for my health insurance. I pay so much for my health insurance that I'm actually angry that I don't use my golden visa and go back and get myself some foreign health insurance, like an international policy, so that when I need to go to the doctor, I can hop on a plane and get myself to a doctor that I can afford. In the United States, I have to choose between, am I going to get this looked at or this looked at? Because they want $5,000 for this procedure. I was charged $2,500 for a CT scan recently. I had an entire surgery, and stayed in a suite that was so amazingly tricked out that had I known how much the bill was going to be, I actually wouldn't have fought to get out of there. I could have stayed, but I had a major surgery for $15. My entire insurance policy, if I were to go back to the UAE and get Cigna International, my policy was going to cost me $2,000 a year. And that $2,000 a year policy would have allowed me to go and see my doctors just as I had been for quite a while. When I came back in 2022, I came back fighting against an order to be on bed rest um, because my body had had an unusual reaction to something I had taken. And so it had caused all sorts of health havoc that lasted for, I want to say, about a year and a half, that I had to fight against that, halfway in the UAE, halfway here. In the UAE, I could go and see my doctor every week. In the beginning, when I was supposed to be on bed rest and wouldn't stay in the hospital, I had to come to the hospital every day. My one thing was to get up, get in a taxi, get myself to the hospital. My doctors checked me out, kept doing the other interventions and things that they needed to look at, and monitoring me. When I came back to the United States, I couldn't get an appointment for so long that I took my return ticket, went back to UAE, and went to my doctor, who told me that she had been so scared before I left. That's why she had sent me with all those medicines and things, because it was too expensive and I wasn't going to be able to see a doctor. I'm a doctor. I try to give the very best to every single one of my patients. I try to treat every single one of my patients as if they are a personal family member or deep loved one, because I want to give them my absolute best.
You know,
But we can't do it anymore. Doctors are leaving hospitals. Doctors are saying to each other that it's ridiculous that people have to wait 6 to 9 months to see us, that they have to make choices about the procedures that they will or will not take, or the medication that they will or will not take. And this is because our country has placed a value on something other than our lives.
and we placed a value on certain people's lives.
Mhm,
And we feel that there are too many, we have useless eaters, we have superfluous people.
mhm,
And again, some people are worth more than others.
mhm,
And that is what we heard from her. And she had the temerity to say that to the people whose votes she needs.
yeah.
Think about that, everybody. I've got about 30 seconds left here, literally, because I've got to pivot over to the next hour. But I want to get 30 seconds from you, Dr. Amar, 30. And when you see my hand up, that means I got to wrap. And 30 seconds from you, Lavonia Perryman. I'm going to let you close this out, Lavonia. Everybody, June 12th, 13th, and 14th, please come to the Rainbow Push Convention. Go to rainbowpush.org. You just need to come on, because we are going to be having the discussions that you need to hear. I'm going to be talking about what Senator Ernst said from the policy perspective. You need to know what this means, what these cuts mean. It's $1 trillion in cuts to SNAP, Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare.
Mhm.
We've never seen cuts to these programs that are this draconian, that are this deep. We haven't seen this. This has not happened before. And we've taken as articles of faith that we're going to have Medicaid and Medicare. These programs are only about between 70, 80, and 60 years of age. That's it. But they're gutting them. They're gutting them. So 30 seconds for you, Dr. Amar, and 30 seconds for you, Lavonia Perryman, June 12th, 13th, and 14th, Rainbow Push Conference. Dr. Amar.
My thoughts on class. I was raised by a lawyer who taught me that the most important person in any building is the janitor. I also believe that the person who picks the lettuce and picks the grapes and picks the crops that feed me and everyone in this nation has as much value as the bankers, the lawyers, the doctors, and everyone else. We are one society, but we are operating as two different clashing classes, the most elite, most wealthy, and everybody else. And so it's going to take everybody else to get up, stand up, and fight back. We deserve it.
Lavonia Perryman.
Can't hear.
Power. Even the secretary has power. Even the person who is sitting in the pew at the church has power. And I want to close out with my 30 seconds saying, you, if you're listening to me, don't let policy, the word policy, don't let senator, don't let House of Representatives, White House, scare you into knowing that you do not have power, your vote can make a difference, and it should. And you must use the power. Remember, even though you may not need SNAP or Medicaid or Medicare today, trust me, trust me, check for tomorrow. You may be the one who need it most. And as also, if you don't need it and you're not using it today, call up a relative, check with someone at work, and see how they have survived and they have been blessed because of Medicaid, because of the SNAP program, because of which there's a disabled person somewhere that is able to walk and talk because your money was used in the right way to make a difference in Medicare and Medicaid.
and SNAP. And if you lose Medicaid, you're going to lose Medicare. You're going to lose Social Security. It's not supposed to be this way, everybody. It's not supposed to be this way. We've got to go another way. Um, what did you say? Maybe we wouldn't need a revolution if people didn't spout GOP propaganda to trash Biden, promote third-party grifters, saying wash Trump's behavior, and blame Harris for all the horrors in Mideast. Santita, I didn't do that. I am going to be a critical supporter. Didn't trash Kamala Harris. I have a personal investment in her. I had one in her winning. I've known her 40 plus years. What I've always tried to do with Kamala Harris is flash the warning signals because I heard what was happening in the community. I did not convince many black men to vote for President Trump. The Democrats did that. They did that all by themselves. Biden's track record has been horrific when it comes to race. And he did nothing to undo that. He could have pardoned a whole lot of folks who he imprisoned with that 94 crime bill. He didn't do it. He never apologized for it. That's on him. I didn't do that, John. I wanted Vice President Harris to have the space to say, hey, a ceasefire. It was President Biden who called her and menacingly told her, no space. Don't you move. He told her that. No daylight, kid. That's what he told her. That was her boss who said that to her. That's menacing, John. So you say that, give that energy to Joe Biden. He did that to her. Give that energy to all the people who surrounded Kamala Harris, who worked for him. Give that energy to him because he's still saying that he could have won. We don't even know if he knows where he is. Today, he is non-compos mentis and he's sick. God bless him. Don't give that energy to me. You give it to him. You give it to them. They jammed her. And this book, and so did Jake Tapper, who has wedded himself to a reporter who tried to say, hey, there's something wrong with this guy. He's been sick a long time. And I don't think you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't think that should have been disqualifying, particularly if you tell the truth. So I didn't do that. I didn't do it. He did it. He did that. We shouldn't be in this position today. You shouldn't have given her 107 days to run for president. Not when other people said in November of 2022, you said you're going to be a transition president. So what you need to do is don't run. Give other people the space to gather up some campaigns and raise money. He didn't do that. So give that energy to them and give that energy to all these people who lied on his behalf. Save that energy for them. Give that to them. Stop it. And let's get real so that this does not happen again to anybody. People need to take their personal stuff out of this. All these people are in a lot of pain because of this. I don't trash anyone. I don't have the need for it. I have lived in public life. Unlike most people who get behind this mic, they have not had to live with security. I've had to live with the police and private security all of my life. I was driven to school by someone who had a gun. That's all I know. So please give me a break. Give me a break. All Kamala needed was a break. She didn't need the people in her camp to tell her, stop talking about going after corporate America. That was a winning message for her. It was the people inside of her camp who told her to stop with the winning message. They're the ones who told you can't say anything about Gaza, which has got Republicans, Democrats, and independents. We want the killing of these Palestinians to stop.
Muslims, Jews, and Christians
No, but
want
this
to
is
stop.
not a religious issue. This is about property. This is political. Stop it. Even the young man who committed that heinous deed in Washington, he didn't go on an anti-Semitic rant. He said, "Look, I want the killing to stop." That's what this is. This is not a religious fight in the Middle East. This is a political one. It has nothing to do with religion. That's the biggest lie going. This has everything to do with politics, land and resources, money, honey. Tell somebody else this. I'm clear on this. Africa is about money. India is about money. Taking all these, this is about money. This is about resources. All of these fights are colonialism is about money. Stop it. Don't come to me about somebody's religion. Nobody cares about that. People love each other anyway, like each other, hate each other, and that religion ain't got nothing to do with it. Most people don't really believe anyway. I don't care what they say. I don't care how observant they are. Because if they believed in God, we would not have this messed up world that we have. You don't believe whatever you call God. You don't believe in it. Because you lie, you kill, you steal, you hurt everybody. If you believed in God, you wouldn't do it. If you believe in God, you know that God is watching everything you do and you're being held accountable for everything that you do on this earth. If you really believed. So give me a break. Stop it. Just stop it. Let's deal with what is real. Yeah, you need to hold Biden accountable. Don't bury him with it, but hold him accountable. Because Kamala deserved better. She did, and we deserve better. More than that, we deserve better than what we got. Let's talk about these cuts and what they're really meaning and how you can fight back with Alex Lawson. Back with the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.